Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Engage 8 podcast. I am Josh and my co-host Mike. Today we have a ton to cover. We're going to talk about the two games we haven't talked about from the NFL in week 11, that being the Sunday night and Monday night games. We will preview week 12 for the NFL season. We'll go game by game. We'll give our picks and we'll give our best bets at the end of the show. And we also need to talk about this past week in college football and how the playoffs are shaping out. So we will start there. Mike, get us started with college football.
Yeah, I like to start with some college football. I'll start with the number one team in the country. Oregon has to travel to Wisconsin, a pretty hostile environment, and they got played very close by this Wisconsin team. Wisconsin was up for a good part of this game going into the fourth quarter. They were up 13-6, but Oregon got hot in that fourth quarter, outscored them up by 10 in the fourth quarter, and Dylan Gabriel was able to get it done. I hope this hurts his Heisman odds. It definitely should. He was not good in this game. He only threw for 218 yards, no touchdowns. Jordan James was great on the ground. He's been great for Oregon all season. Had 121 yards and a touchdown. With Wisconsin, they've been kind of marred with the injuries to that quarterback position all year, but not a great game passing. They were solid running. It was really just a defensive battle, and Oregon was able to squeak out a win that keeps them undefeated, 11-0. And the Big Ten actually just found out today after going through their massive list of hypotheticals that Oregon did clinch a spot in the Big Ten championship. That was just found out today, so they'll be there in Indy no matter what. Next game here, a team that was undefeated and is undefeated no longer, BYU loses to Kansas 17-13. They've been struggling recently, but a home game against Kansas, who has been bad, is not a game you want to lose. And BYU loses this one. They were not great at all on offense. Defensively, they played solid, but when the offense only puts up 13 points, they had 162 yards on the ground, but a lot of it was just kind of receiver runs. They just didn't have it in this game, and this really hurts their college football playoff chances. They still have a chance, I'd say, if they are able to win out, but just a loss you didn't want to have if you are BYU. You wanted to stay undefeated. And Kansas, with such a tough season that they've had, this is a big win for them to get. The big game of the week, Georgia versus Tennessee. Tennessee came out of the gates firing early. They went up 10-0 in the first quarter, ended the first quarter up 10-0. And then Carson Beck kind of seemed to find it. He's been struggling in recent weeks with interceptions, specifically turning the ball over, but he was in rhythm this game. One of his best games of the season, throws for 347 yards, no interceptions. He was great. They didn't really have to run the ball because of how well he was passing it, and they put up 31 points against this Tennessee defense that had really not given up anything all year. I want to say the most points they'd given up is 18 on the season, and they in this game they go and give up 31 points. Just a great game for Georgia and a win that they absolutely had to get to stay in the playoff hunt. And now that really boosts their odds. At Tennessee, a win here would have clinched them, I think, a spot in the SEC championship. They were unable to get that done. Dylan Sampson was solid on the ground. Nico really just didn't have it through the air. Georgia's defense was good, and Carson Beck had maybe his best game of the season. Next game here, I'll talk about kind of the Heisman race. The first one here, Colorado versus Utah. Colorado continues to dominate. They put up 49 points on Utah, which going into the season we thought would be a lot better than they actually are. Isaac Wilson wasn't good in this one for Utah, threw 3 picks. They didn't really have much going. The Colorado defense is very good. We saw Travis Hunter get an interception. We saw him score a touchdown as well, running the ball. He's really keeps boosting his Heisman resume. It's really, in my opinion, him versus Ashton Genty at this point. But he has a huge game there. And the last game I'll talk about for now, SMU versus Boston College. This was a close game for a long time. Boston College is a solid team. I think they're a little bit better than their record shows at 5-5, but SMU's offense got hot in the second half and won them the game. Kelvin Jennings throws for 3 touchdowns and 1 pick, 298 yards. This team is 9-1. In my opinion, they should kind of be right there at like the 11th seed in the college football playoff right now. They're first in the ACC. I think this team's very good, and I'd love for them to go out, win the ACC, and find themselves in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'll start with BYU because people for the past few weeks have been waiting for this BYU team to lose. They've been waiting to put them down, talking about how bad they are for being undefeated. Similar situation with IU. And Then they lose this game to Kansas, and everyone wants to be like, "Oh, Kansas is they were 3-6 going into this game. Kansas is such a bad team. How did they lose at home to Kansas?" And it's like, okay, well, let's pick one here. First of all, Kansas was favored in this game. Kansas was 2.5 point favorites in BYU going into this game. So it's not like BYU got completely upset as big home favorites. Kansas, despite their record, lost by 2 points at K-State 3 weeks ago. Then they won against Iowa State, a great Big 12 team. They beat them by 9 points. They should have beat them by like 25. They were up that entire game by so much. And then they go into BYU and win. So as much as it does suck for BYU to lose this game, they still sit with the best overall record and tied for the best record in the Big 12, where they currently sit. And they have a really tough game at Arizona State next week, which is going to be a make or break for them. This Arizona State team has been really good. They're in line to possibly make the Big 12 title game here, and they have Houston at home. I think they'll beat Houston at home pretty easily, but that Arizona State game is going to be make or break for them. BYU at this point is nowhere near dead. But talking about some of these other games, like you said, Oregon, they struggle in Wisconsin. That's always a tough place to play in Madison, where no matter what team you are going in. And we've seen Oregon score a ton of points all year. Their defense has been great too, but they've been so good offensively. And we're waiting to see what happens when they go on the road into a tough environment and they can't score points. Are they going to be able to be gritty enough to go beat a team like this? And say what you want about Wisconsin, the 5-5 team. They went in there and they took care of business, going down 7 points in the fourth quarter, and they still come back and win this one by 3 points in the end. I agree with you, though. I think this should absolutely tank Dylan Gabriel's stock for Heisman. But overall, if you're Oregon, you're still number one. Not every number one team is perfect, and I think this is a fine win for them. Other teams around here, you mentioned the Georgia game. They beat Tennessee at home. Georgia was favored in this game at home here, despite that tough start from Tennessee. Like you said, Beck figured it out in this game. He hasn't been good in the past like 5 or 6 weeks now, and he goes and he plays against this Tennessee defense, which is a tough defense in Tennessee. Their offense definitely has some question marks, and that's been a thing all year for Tennessee, but their defense has been stellar throughout. And Carson Beck bounces back, goes down 10-0 at home, season on the line against Tennessee, and he goes and proves a point. This Georgia team's probably going to make the playoff at the end of the day. You look at the SEC here and they're sitting at third right now. The Aggies and the Longhorns, couple 5-1 teams, sitting at the top of the AC or of the SEC right now. Excuse me. I believe these teams play in the final week of the season. For Texas, they have Kentucky at home, and then they go into A&M. And for A&M, they have at Auburn, and then at home against Texas. So assuming those teams take care of Auburn and Kentucky, two teams that we've talked about are scrappy teams that can give you a problem. There's no way Kentucky wins that game on the road. So I think Texas for sure will keep their record going in. A&M versus who did I just say they're playing? At Auburn is going to be a competitive game though. Uh, even though Auburn is sitting at 1-5 on the year in the SEC. Basically, my point here is Georgia, assuming Texas wins that game against A&M, I believe Georgia should have the
Yeah,
tiebreaker
they do.
over Texas A&M. So if Texas A&M wins at home, we're going to see a double. We're going to see that game back to back in the last game of the season in the Big 12. So I guess that's kind of our or the SEC. So I guess that's kind of our Army Navy consolation prize as we get to see those teams play back to back, but it is not the same. Unfortunately, Navy loses 35 to nothing against Tulane at home. Horvath goes out in this game, and that just completely crippled them. You see Tulane just absolutely destroy them. Tulane is probably going to play Army now in this American championship. I'm assuming there's no way any other team makes it. A team that's completely fallen off a cliff over the past few weeks, LSU, third loss in
Yeah.
a row now. I believe it's their third loss in a row, right? Because I know they either they lost yeah, third loss in a row. A&M, Alabama, Florida, two of those games on the road. They lose three in a row. LSU is absolutely done. I think there's going to be some coaching controversy going into the season for them, as Brian Kelly has not performed the way he promised going into this team. And then the last one I want to talk about here. Well, actually, I'll touch on SMU Boston College really quickly. Castellanos, I believe, entered the transfer portal for Boston College. He's been great all year, up until this. I'm pretty sure he entered the transfer portal midweek last week or after the game before. I can't quite remember, but I
Yeah.
believe
He
he
was
is.
benched, I guess.
He was benched and then he entered the transfer portal. He had a great beginning of the season. Some team is going to pick him up and end up being solid next year, no question. And then Arizona State, K-State. The way I feel about this Arizona State team right now is how I feel, or is how I felt about a lot of the teams in the Big 12 all year. Skatibo, the running back is phenomenal. He's so good. He's able to just go out there and get 100 plus yards every single game. He is not getting a ton of hype because of how great Gentry's been, but regardless, he's very good. And Arizona State controls their own destiny now. They can go beat BYU and get themselves a title game matchup with Colorado, and that's a game they absolutely could win. Have those teams played this year? Colorado, ASU? They haven't. So
I don't think so.
that'd be interesting. Now, it's going to be Colorado, BYU, Arizona State, some sort of those combo, and I think we're gonna get a great Big 12 title game regardless.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a great game regardless. Speaking on Florida, just really bad loss for LSU in this game. Game you kind of had to win. Brian Kelly doesn't get it done. Now they're sitting at 6-4, completely out of the playoff at this point. I don't think they have a chance to make it at all. Brian Kelly's buyout clause, I think, is upwards of like 60 million. I just know it's a whole lot of money. It doesn't go down very fast either. It takes a while for that to go down. So he's most likely going to be there for a while unless those
They're still
LSU boosters,
paying Coach O too.
yeah, unless those LSU boosters are really tired of it. I don't see that going away anytime soon. They just kind of got dominated in this game. Disappointing. One game we didn't talk about that was very close, South Carolina and Missouri, two ranked SEC teams, two very good teams. South Carolina gets it done late. They were down, I think, three going into the last minutes of the game, and they get a touchdown late to win the game. Just a phenomenal win. Brady Cook was unable to get it done for Missouri, but Lenoris Sellers, 5 touchdowns in this game, passing 353 yards and a touchdown. He was great. Added 45 yards on the ground. Just a huge win for South Carolina, as they've had a very good season up to this point and continue to get some big wins. We saw them beat Oklahoma, close loss to Alabama, and then just losses to LSU and Ole Miss, which if they play them now, I think they win those games pretty easily. But except for Ole Miss, I mean LSU, if they play LSU now, they get a win. Uh, Another ranked loss, Louisville loses to Stanford. Disappointing game as well. They give up 38 points to a Stanford team that hasn't had a great season. Louisville, this is just another ACC team that is kind of on the. They were close to potentially going to play for an ACC championship, but now they're out of it. Good season as a whole for them, but you'd expect more. They have that loss to SMU, and this loss pretty much puts them out of the race. And the other ACC team that picks up a big win is Clemson as they get a last second touchdown to beat Pitt. Huge win for them as they pretty much, I don't know if have they clinched an ACC championship appearance. I know they're first now.
They're second to SMU, but
Or,
um,
well, are they? I
they're
think they might still be divisions, no?
no, I don't think any conference has divisions anymore.
Unless they're just tied for first then
And
at 7
outside
and
of
1.
the Sun Belt, I believe is the only major conference that has divisions. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're second right now. It's SMU, Clemson, Miami.
Yeah. I think they have. I think they're out of it right now if they don't get a win then. I think Miami and SMU are playing as of right now for that championship.
Well, technically it's Clemson because they played two
They played
more
one more.
games.
That's why they're listed as first. That
Yeah.
makes sense. But that's pretty much all for the games. If you look at the Heisman odds, we were correct on our assumption that Dylan Gabriel has fallen to all the way down to fourth at plus 2,500. Travis Hunter's a pretty big favorite now at minus 350, and Ashton Genty at plus 380. It's kind of looking like a two-man race at this point, and the Ryan Williams option is still there at plus 20,000.
Yeah. That hasn't gone up after this week.
No,
Um, yeah, it looks like well, Clemson's done now in the ACC for games played. They've played all their ACC games already. They have the Citadel and South Carolina as their final two games.
oh wow,
So, it's probably going to be Miami SMU, but I don't want to lock in Miami for winning. I mean, I think they'll beat Wake Forest at home, but I don't want to lock them in for beating Syracuse on the road. It's a tough place to
yeah.
play sometimes. Syracuse is a good team. They're the fourth best team in the ACC record wise right now. I don't want to lock them in for that. I think who does SMU have left? They
This
have
this conference realignment just makes these tiebreakers so
yeah, it's confusing. UVA and Cal are the last two games for SMU. I think SMU goes undefeated in the ACC, but yeah, that Clemson Miami, um, I don't want to say matchup because they're not playing, but uh, battle for the second seed in the ACC is going to be interesting. Who is going to have a chance to play SMU? And there's a very good chance that after a great season that Miami's had, they can miss the playoff.
Yeah, the main tiebreaker it says per ACC rules is head to head. Don't have that. And then second is win percentage versus all common opponents. So
Ugh, I'm not doing that math.
yeah.
Yeah, no chance of doing that math. But
Third is win percentage versus common opponents based upon their order of finish and proceeding through other common opponents based on their order of finish. So
I don't know what the difference between those two are. But
yeah.
some playoff things. Oregon still going to be fine. They still have every first place vote. They've had it for a few weeks now. Ohio State, Texas, Penn State. Somehow is Penn State gonna miss the championship game? Okay, so if Penn State wins out, they don't make the championship game. IU loses to Ohio State and beats Purdue. They don't make the championship game. It's Oregon, Ohio State in the championship again. Are they really about to put in Penn State over IU?
It seems like it.
I mean, I know they played a better strength of schedule, but man, like if IU loses close to Ohio State, goes 10-0 up until that point, there's a real world where IU doesn't make the playoff, and it's wild. It's
I know.
truly
I
wild.
saw what's his name? Is it Josh Pate or
Yeah.
something? He says
Yep.
IU shouldn't make it if they lose to Ohio State just because of their Big Ten schedule was so bad. I mean, yeah.
I mean, the competition in this hypothetical scenario is going to be the 8-2 or the two loss Georgias, two loss Ole Miss, two loss Bama. I mean,
I can see maybe if they get absolutely blown out. That's the only way. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Penn State's only quality win, looking at their schedule, is
USC at USC.
not. I wouldn't even say at USC. I'd say maybe their only win is Illinois. I don't think USC is that good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they are
And
either, but they were fine up until that point.
the USC game went to overtime as well.
Yeah, they should have lost that game. USC was up by a lot in the first half. Like they absolutely should
There's
have
a
lost
chance
that
the
game.
USC doesn't even go bowl eligible this year.
Yeah, it's wild. I think a big notable game here for Hoosier fans is A&M Texas in the championship.
Yeah.
If if A&M wins that game, they beat Texas. Well, hold on. Is there a way Texas doesn't make the playoff?
I mean, I would assume
If
if
they get
they,
if they get swept by A&M, they have three losses.
yeah, I don't
Man,
know.
yeah, it's gonna be
You know
interesting.
what?
Like
I think Tennessee might get in if Texas loses to the championship,
Tennessee gets in over Texas with two losses and Texas
to
with
the
three.
SEC championship. Yeah. If
Really?
my Tennessee fan friend said it correctly, I think that's what he stated.
If it's the same friend I'm thinking of, I don't know if you could if I
That's
would
just,
trust that at
yeah,
all.
yeah, that's the source.
Well, let's
But
see. Hold on. So you're saying
friend of, he's been on the program.
if yeah, if A&M loses to Texas, or
No,
no,
if
if Texas
Texas
loses to
loses
A&M,
to A&M, then Tennessee could get in over Texas.
no, because it would be Georgia then, because they have head to head and they would both have two losses. It wouldn't be Tennessee, it'd be Georgia.
Okay.
And
Then my
no, and
source was
Georgia
wrong.
lost to Texas, so it wouldn't be Georgia either.
So if it's not Texas and it's not Georgia, who is
I
it?
It's Texas.
I
It's
don't know what to
there.
see. I don't
If
know.
Texas loses, I don't think they cannot make it. If A&M loses, has A&M played Georgia or Tennessee? No, of
Texas
course they
A&M.
haven't played either one of them. So yeah, it's either going to be Texas and A&M or Texas and whoever has the tiebreaker between Georgia, Tennessee, and A&M, and it won't be Tennessee because they've lost to Georgia.
Well, yeah, because the SEC tiebreakers is one head-to-head, two record versus all conference opponents among the tied teams.
All common opponents. Yeah, which yeah, it's going to be Texas versus A&M or Georgia. Is what it's going to be. There's no world where Tennessee makes it unless Georgia loses between now and then. against UMass or Georgia Tech. So I don't see a world where Tennessee can make it. I think the person you're talking about is a fool who can't do math. I think that's what it comes down to.
Let's see. How can SEC? How can
Maybe
Tennessee?
he meant if they beat Georgia, if they would have won
No.
the Georgia game, because then they could do it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that was what he had seen, and he just took it
That's
the other
I
way,
guarantee you that's what he
and he
saw.
took it the other way.
But that's
That's
about all
that's
I
how they get
got.
in if they lose. Yeah,
That's all I got for college football.
that's all I got. I'm trying to read this now.
All right, cool. We'll move on here then to Sunday night and Monday night recap. We'll start with the Chargers beating the Bengals 34-27. I had my best bet of the Chargers here. The under was not close. Joe Burrow, Cincinnati currently is the number one passing team in yards per
Yeah.
game right now in football, and they're sitting at 4-7. That run game, which actually is surprisingly improved in yards per attempt because they've had a couple big runs, but still that run game is not there. We see the Bengals go out there and do kind of what we said they needed to do to win this game, not let the Chargers run all over them. But we saw Justin Herbert lock back in for one of the first times this year. 300 passing yards, damn near, two touchdowns, no interceptions. Lad McConkey, phenomenal in this game, 6 for 123. And the Bengals, in a game where they go down by so much and they come back vigorously, and then all of a sudden they go back and forth, punt, 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 and then eventually the Chargers on a big J.K. Dobbins run go and win the game. Big win for the Chargers. This is a game where you definitely could have blown it. This is a game where the Chargers lose most of the time in most seasons. If they don't have Jim Harbaugh, they lose this game most of the time. Where they go up big, that we saw it in the wild card game a few years back against Jacksonville. They go up big, they blow a lead, and then they have nothing they can really do after that. But this is not where that happened. They blew the lead and then they came back and they were able to finish the game off late. For the Bengals, they continue to just have their passing dominance. T. Higgins in his first game back, dominant, 9 catches, 148 yards, and a touchdown coming off that hamstring injury. He is a bye now, but he's great for them. Whether he'll be a Bengal a year from now or not is definitely a question. But if they do have him, he's going to continue to be a top weapon for them. But this Chargers team, like I was saying, they did what they haven't done in previous years, which is be able to sustain a team coming back. They were able to do it. They sit at 7-3 now, one of the most underrated teams in football, in my opinion. And Jim Harbaugh has really done his thing with this roster.
He has done a thing with this roster. This was easily their best offensive output of the season. They put up 34 points. I think their previous high was like 24, 27 points. So the best game from them there. Justin Herbert was great in this game. 297 yards, two touchdowns, no interceptions. Microsoft Teams just popped up. Don't know why. J.K. Dobbins doesn't have a huge game rushing, only 56 yards, but Justin Herbert scrambling using his legs had a lot of big scrambles, a couple that were 10 plus yards. He had a big one that I think was 30 yards. He was just all around great. Lad McConkey has sort of a breakout game. He's been having good games all year, but 6 catches, 123 yards on 9 targets. He was fantastic. And then on the other side of the football, you have Joe Burrow and this Bengals team where offensively in the first half they put up 6 points, did not look great. And then in the second half, just Joe Burrow just turned it on. He got his team back in the game very quickly. A huge fourth down conversion to T. Higgins for a touchdown, 9 catches, 148, and a touchdown for T. And then Jamar Chase, 775 and two touchdowns. That duo was great in this game. Just the defense lets them down again, gives up 34 points. I said I thought on the preview, I thought if the Bengals got to 27 that they would win this game, but the defense continues to let them down. I saw a stat that was talking about Joe Burrow and the stats that he has on the season, and the only quarterbacks relatively close to those stats records at the time, and it was like Peyton Manning, Brady, and all of the records were like 9-1, 10-1. And you got Joe Burrow here sitting at 4-7, probably a game away from elimination at this point. Um, just a rough go. Evan McPherson, uh, I'm not gonna. If we could go back and do duds of the week again, I'd probably throw him in there. They gave him multiple opportunities to take the lead for the Bengals, and he missed both of them. He was rough in this game, and he's kind of been rough ever since that playoff run that they had, where he hit game winner after game winner. Just a disappointing game from him. And for a while, it looked like these quarterbacks were having to notch his fault off, and in the end, Justin Herbert gets it done.
Okay, moving on here to the Texans beating the Cowboys 34 to 10. I don't have a ton to say about this game, honestly. Joe Mixon continues to be phenomenal. I saw people on Twitter comparing the Saquon going to the Eagles and Giants letting him walk, same thing with Cincinnati. That wasn't the case. Honestly, I don't think it's the case either way. The problem with the Giants is that they paid Daniel Jones so much goddamn money and didn't pay Saquon. The Bengals just let Joe Mixon walk. They weren't going to be able to afford him anyways, and even if they could afford him, he wasn't doing anything with them because they can't fucking run the ball anyways. So that's kind of been something that I don't really understand the discourse online about. The Texans can run the ball, and that's why they are able to do it with Joe Mixon, and he's just been so good this year. Texans offense was great, 34 points, of course. Nico Collins had a big touchdown called back in this one. I think we're going to see this Texans offense really start to hit a rhythm now that he's back. I think in the next few weeks, we're going to start to see them be dominant. John Mechie actually also quietly having a decent wide receiver three season with Stephon Diggs now out. He kind of moves up to wide receiver three there. He's been solid. He's been better than Bobby Trees. Cowboys, Cooper Rush finishes this game with a ton of passing yards. They were down by so much, but once again, common theme, can't run the damn ball whatsoever. 18 carries for 64 yards in this game. They were horrible running the ball. Cowboys just this is a very, very disappointing. It was a disappointing season for the Cowboys before Dak got hurt, and now it's just going to get worse and worse. At least they're probably going to have one of the top picks in the draft now. They're 0-5 at home this year in a stadium that is legitimately collapsing as we speak. Let's see where they sit at draft pick at this very moment. They
It's
sit
got to be like
at
fifth though, with like four 2-win teams.
9.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ninth with 3 wins right now is crazy.
yeah, it is. I mean, they're also the last 3-win team here. It's the Jacksonville, Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants, Vegas are the 2-win teams, and then not Eagles, New England, the Jets, Carolina, Dallas rounds it out. And a team like the Saints, where you lose 7 games midseason and fire your coach, then you go win a couple, and now you're sitting at pick 10. So, um, it sucks for a team like that, especially with this draft order. But yeah, Texans, they had to win this game like this. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and I think they're going to continue. Uh, how great they've been all year. I'll talk about their defense a little bit in the preview, but of course, did what they need to do.
At this time last year, we kept talking about how great this Cowboys team was, especially at home. They were undefeated. They had one of the longest home winning streaks in the NFL. I think they broke their franchise record for home wins in a row, and they finally lost that in the playoffs, and they haven't won since. They're 0-5, lost their last six. They've been getting dominated at home. They have Jerry World is literally falling apart. They have pieces from the ceiling collapsing onto the field. It's just everything that's gone wrong for the Cowboys this year has gone wrong. Cooper Rush, like you said, he gets a lot of yards late. They just simply haven't. I don't know. Them and the Raiders are just two generationally bad running teams. It's almost hard to do at this point. You think you'd stumble into at least one rusher with 50 yards, but they can't. McCarthy, a guy who's wanted to pound the rock, simply can't do it. CeeDee Lamb has a solid game, I guess, 8 catches for 93 yards. But after that, this team just doesn't have any weapons. We saw Jake Ferguson leave this game early with a concussion, so that hurts them as well. And it's not good in Dallas right now. And the Texans went in there and dominated, did what they had to do. They kept CJ Stroud protected. He only took 1 sack in this game, which is huge. Does throw a bit of a shaky interception, but I think he'll be fine. He gets Nico Collins back, who gets 4 catches for 54 yards. Probably had about 100 plus yards taken away from penalties. 2 big catches taken away from penalties. One that he took to the house and one that was about 30 yards. But Joe Mixon, he's been great. This Texans defense is great. This is a huge win. And they still got a 3-game lead in the division and the tiebreaker. So I guess it's almost 4. So as long as they don't have a Jaguars collapse, this Texans team is well on their way to winning that division.
Okay, moving on here now to our preview for week 12 of the NFL season. We'll start out with some of the buys. We have our first 6-team bye week. We have this week and week 14. I don't know if you've looked, but week 13 has no
Yeah,
buys.
I know.
So we're back to a full slate next
Thanksgiving
week.
week makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I guess. But um Yeah, we got some teams here on bye. Saints, Jags, doesn't matter for either of them. Maybe Doug Peterson will get fired. I saw a tweet that it was the Anthony Edwards Gatorade meme. It was Jacksonville
Yeah.
with Doug Peterson right now. But the Falcons, a team that desperately needs this bye week. They're playing bad football right now. They need to go into the bye week, rest up, and prepare for this back half of the season where they're going to be competing with Tampa Bay, who we'll talk about in a bit here. Bills coming off their biggest win of the year. They go into to bye. They play the Lions in a couple weeks, but this I would say this is a fine bye for them. Obviously, they're a hot team. You don't want a hot team going into a bye, but they had to have it eventually, and now they get to go in this back half of the season ready to go. Jets dead. Bengals. This is like kind of the inverse of the Bills situation. Like they're playing fine ball, they're just losing games. I mean, they're playing fine ball offensively, they're just losing games. And I'm not sure this bye week is really going to help them as they need to win out regardless of what happens here going forward. But I'm I think it's pretty safe to say the Bengals aren't making the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be hard. I mean, I think there is potential for a 9-8 team to make the playoffs in the AFC. So that would give them one more loss, but I don't know what they're looking like in terms of tiebreakers with that. Saints, like you said, they're pretty much dead. They can win out. We've talked about how they have one of the easiest strength of schedules, but it's winning out as the Saints is not likely. The Jags, just a rough football team. They don't really have anything going for them. Maybe Trevor Lawrence can get healthy and you can just get him back on the field. That'd be nice. Let him continue to develop his connection with Brian Thomas as he's mainly the only target. We saw today or yesterday, Gabe Davis is out for the rest of the year as well. So Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk, two of their three receivers that they were excited going into the season, both suffer season-ending injuries. The Jets, just a sad football team, really disappointing. I don't know which New York team. I'd say probably the Jets are the most disappointing New York
Oh,
team, but
definitely. 1,000%.
um,
Yeah.
the defense hasn't been as good as you'd want it to be, but it's been the offense that's just killed this team. Falcons need to buy. They've had moments where their offense has been good in recent weeks. Really, their defense has been poor. They need to figure some things out defensively, but let Kirk Cousins rest a little bit. He was very bad last week. And then the Bills, they're coming off of a huge win. Maybe this will prevent any hangover coming off of that win, but you're playing great ball. You kind of just want to continue it. So, yeah.
Okay, moving on here. By the way, I'm looking at the strength of schedule. After the Lions or after the Colts play the Lions this week, the Colts might have the easiest strength of
Oh,
schedule
yes.
remaining.
Oh, yeah.
They're 30th and they're playing a team that's 9-1.
I mean,
So
do you want me to list the teams?
I'm looking at it. Jags,
Gi-
Titans,
Giants, I
Giants,
think.
Patriots. Yeah. They're
All the
only
bottom
two
feeders.
the only two hard games here are the Lions and the Broncos. So
Yeah, when that Broncos game, that might be a playoff game.
yeah, it's definitely gonna have some implications. But we'll move on here to Thursday Night Football, AFC North matchup. Steelers at Browns. Seems like a bit of a trap line here, in
Yes.
my opinion, at 3.5. Almost
There's never
unexplainable.
been a more trap line than
Yeah,
this.
honestly. Browns defense was arm tackling the entire game against the Saints. They seem to have just completely checked out of ever since Darius Smith got traded last week. It kind of seems like they just aren't there. Steelers offense has been absolutely rolling recently. I think they're going to torch this defense. The Browns, of course, allow the most sacks per game in the league. Surprisingly, the Steelers are just 23rd in sacks per game. I thought they'd be a lot higher than that. They have a lot of good pass rushers, a lot of good edge rushers. That number is going to go way up this week, in my opinion. Steelers have struggled in the red zone offensively. They're actually 30th in the league. The Browns are just so bad on defense, though, and have been over the past couple of weeks that I think they're going to be able to score down there. I know it's a primetime road division game with a trap line, but the Steelers, I cannot not take the Steelers here. So I'm going to take them at 3.5. Taking the Browns would just be crazy.
It's almost such a trap that it makes you want to pick the Browns. Steelers have been one of the hottest teams in recent weeks. Ever since Russell Wilson's come in as the starter, they've been 4-0. He's been good with 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, completing about 60% of his passes. Defensively, they've been just as good. We saw last week going against one of the top scoring offenses. They give up only 16 points. Um, they were great. TJ Watt only has 7 sacks in 10 games. I'd say that's kind of part of why they're not as high on the sacks as you would think, but I think he has a chance to have a huge game here. They've been bad in the red zone, like you said. They're only scoring touchdowns 44% of the time. Last week, they went 0 for 4 in the red zone. Maybe the Vegas just thinks that the Browns are able to hold them to field goals, and Jameis can make some plays and keep them in this game. But they haven't been able to score all season long. Reach 20 points in a game. Uh, they haven't reached 20 points in a game all season long, and they're going against a Steelers team that has only allowed 20 points 3 times. It is a home game for the Browns. Since 2017, the Steelers have only won in Cleveland twice, once in 2017 and once in 2021. Ben Roethlisberger was the last time the Steelers team won in Cleveland. They're 4-2-1 in that span against the Steelers. The AFC North is just a strange division where stuff like this happens. We talked about how Lamar is really bad against the Steelers, but the Steelers are one of the best teams against the spread. Yeah, they're 8-2 against the spread. I can't pick against them in this one.
Yeah, got to. But we can move on. Lions at Colts. The matchup is finally here, 2 years in the making of the pod. Lions have moved a half point. As we were recording 2 days ago, it was at 7. The Lions are 7.5 point favorites now, which that is a huge half point. One of the Lions' biggest strengths this year has been in their takeaways. They're second in takeaways, 1.9 a game. Colts have turned it over the third most in the league this year. Granted, some of those were Flacco, some have been AR, but regardless, they still have turned it over. Colts are a really tough team to evaluate because you never really know what you're going to get on either side of the ball from them. Earlier on in the year, it was kind of easier to predict because they weren't great offensively and then defense was up and down. But you never really know what you're going to get from this team either on either side of the ball. For the Colts to win, they're going to have to be the first team to run the ball very well versus the Lions. Anthony Richardson will have to be very accurate as well for them to win this game. Of course, the Lions defense, regardless of what people say about them, regardless of their passing yards per game numbers, they're bend don't break. They don't let you score in the red zone, and they're as good as any unit in the league. While the Lions have only had a turnover problem in one game, that being the 5 interception game against Houston, the Colts defense has to manufacture turnovers to win this game. They have, whether it's force a fumble from Monty or Jahmyr Gibbs or one of the receivers, or force Goff into a couple picks, you have to turn the Lions over to beat them. And I don't think the Colts are past that. I'm worried about the Lions linebacker room right now, although I do really like the David Long signing with Alexander Zaloni going out for 6 to 8 weeks. Long's been was horrible this year, but 2 years prior he was great in 2022, great in 2023. The Colts are going to have to find a way to exploit that Lions linebacker room, run a lot of stuff over the middle, a lot of stuff to their slot receiver. Like Josh Downs could have a very, very big day in this game. While I like this Colts defense, the Lions are just rolling right now offensively, and I think we see minimum 28 points from the Lions in this game. Lions offense, they're sixth on and third, or their offense is sixth on third down and fourth in the red zone. Their defense is first on third down and third in the red zone. I've been saying every single week, those are four very key categories to be good in, and the Lions are top six in all of those. I think the turnover differential makes a difference in this one. I think the Lions get a couple takeaways, maybe one of the safeties gets another pick, and even though I wish the line was 7, I'm obviously not gonna pick against the Lions. I'm gonna take him at -7.5.
Yeah, I think the most important part of this game is I think whichever team wins the turnover battle wins the spread or the game. Both team defenses are great at turning the ball over. For the Lions, I think they could put up a huge number on this Colts defense. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, if anyone on the Lions is to have a huge game, I think it would be him. The Colts have struggled this season on outside zone runs or like tosses, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs could have a big day exploiting that. But I can also see this Colts defense coming out. They're kind of a bipolar defense. This is a big game. Indiana Knights jerseys coming out during the day. I could see them having a big game, turning Goff over, maybe getting a fumble or two, and just limiting the turnovers offensively. The Lions pass rush isn't the best. The Colts could be able to exploit that. Hopefully Anthony Richardson has time in the pocket to throw. He was very good against the blitz last week. He had struggled most of the season, but last week he was phenomenal. It was his best game. He seemed very calm after the game. He didn't get too excited. They say he's going in at 5:30 every morning, getting in the protections with the offensive line coach. He hasn't posted anything on social media in like a month. He's dialed in right now, and I think he's due for another big game and kind of a game where he shows the world that he can be an elite quarterback. The Lions defense, he said, has been good against the run this season, one of the best teams against the run. Really, the only game they've played against a mobile quarterback was Kyler Murray. That was a close game where they did slow down the Cardinals offense a lot, but it was still very close. Hopefully, Anthony Richardson can show them something they haven't really seen before with that mobile QB and the QB run game. They're missing left tackle Bernard Ryman the last couple of weeks. Hopefully, he's able to get back in this lineup, and that'd be a huge boost to not have three rookies on the offensive line. It'd be nice to only have two. I think it's all going to come down to the turnover battle, and I'm not going to bet against the Colts. I'm uh I'm going Colts plus 7.5.
If Anthony Richardson has another like back to normal game, like 30% completion, two picks, 100 yards, are you gonna go back to where you were pre last game, or are you gonna still be like, you know what, last game he was good? How's your view gonna be
I
on him if
mean,
he has another bad game?
I think we'll cross that road when we get there. I think it all depends on how he plays. If he's turning the ball over with bad completion, I think that's a different
I
story.
mean, he let's say he looks like he did in the first half of the season.
See, he had flashes though. Does he still have the flashes or not?
He
It
can
kind of
have the
depends.
flashes, but like the stat line's gonna be just as bad as it was, like bad completion.
He's still a young quarterback. He's younger than most of the guys in this draft class. He's still trying to develop. I just hope they don't. I don't think. I think he's the starter no matter what this year. This is one of the better
Gotta be.
defenses in the NFL, and you look at the schedule going forward. He doesn't have those top defenses. I mean, that Jets defense was top five in pass defense, and he had his
Yep.
career high in passing yards. So he has the potential. He just needs to just continue to get more and more consistent.
Okay,
I'm not worried yet.
with that being said, we will move on here to next game, Chiefs at Panthers. Chiefs get a gimme game after having their first loss of the season. Chiefs' biggest issues all year this year have come from turnovers and their pass defense. Carolina does have a dog shit secondary, but they could still force turnovers. They haven't been towards the bottom of the league in turnovers, so they could definitely turn Mahomes over, get a pick or two. Chiefs' run defense remains stellar regardless of the loss last week. Putting the ball in Bryce Young's hands, which is what the Panthers are going to have to do in this game, will be a recipe for success for the Chiefs. Make him do what he hasn't been able to do in his entire career, which is truly carry a team. Panthers coming off a bye. They should have something cooked up for Kansas City. They should have been prepping for this game over the past 2 weeks. Some teams bounce back against a bad team if they go and they play one of their best teams of the year. For example, Chiefs play the Bills. Now they have to go into Carolina, and some teams completely overlook that bad team that they play the next week on the road. Panthers are at home. They're off a bye, 11-point dogs. Kansas City plays everyone so close. I'm gonna rock with the Panthers plus 11.
Yeah, this is a huge spread. And looking at the first two, by the way, I think 90% of people were on Lions minus 7.5, and like 95% were on Steelers minus 3.5.
Great,
So
great.
a lot of people picking the favorites this week. And this one, it doesn't really change much. Chiefs, 80% of the people are on Chiefs minus 11, coming off of their first loss of the season. They might get Isaiah Pacheco back in this game. That could help boost their run game. Kind of have a duo with him and Kareem Hunt might be nice. My issue with the Panthers, I think their offense could score a little bit of points. This Chiefs defense is fantastic, but this Panthers defense has been one of the worst in football. We saw them get a little bit better right before the bye. I'm just worried that they won't be able to continue that. Last time the Chiefs lost, I guess you could say they won 15 games in a row, so it's hard to pick against them coming out of a loss. But they just haven't really blown anyone out this season. Seven of their nine wins have been one score games. They have yet to cover a line greater than 6 points this season. In the last two games before the bye for the Panthers, they covered in both of those games. Bryce Young has a chance to kind of do what Anthony Richardson also has a chance as well to go out and show that you can be a franchise quarterback, have a big game. I'm just worried about the defense he's going against, but 11 points is just it's a lot. So I will go with Panthers plus 11.
What's the public on that? All over Panthers?
No, they're all over Chiefs, 81%.
Really? Wow, that
Yeah,
shocks me. That shocks me. But
that's they're liking the favorite so far.
all right, moving on here to Buccaneers at Giants. Bucks coming off a bye, and it's time for them to make a run now. Giants are also coming off a bye, and they have announced that they're starting Danny DeVito at quarterback. DeVito came in last season.
You said Danny DeVito.
Oh, I did it again. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Tommy DeVito. Wow. That was, I mean, it's back all last season. I kept doing it last season too. There's one DeVito in my heart. There's one DeVito in my heart. But
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito came in last season, lit the world up. There was no film on him then at that point, though. Now there's a ton of film. You can go and look at everything he did last year. I think that's exactly what Todd Bowles and his Tampa defense are going to be doing. Kind of screws them because they were definitely prepping for Daniel Jones through that entire bye week. And the Giants come and they put in Tommy DeVito at the beginning of this week. Smart move by the Giants there to keep that hush until now. But Tampa Bay should still have an entire week to prep for him. They've done a great job of protecting Baker all season. They're going to need to keep that up versus the second leading pass rush in the league in the Giants. Mike Evans should be back for Tampa. I think this passing offense has a great game. I'm just so in love with everything that Baker and this passing offense has done all year, regardless of who their weapons are. They got me feeling nicey, and I think they're going to go on a run here at the end of the year. Tampa Bay is a team that you would want to face in your first start as a quarterback. So DeVito gets to play a secondary that hasn't played great this year, but he's not going to have much of a run game because Tampa's just so good at stopping the run, and Vita Vea is just so amazing. So I wouldn't be shocked if DeVito went in there and had a good game, as we've seen a lot of these backup quarterbacks do in their first game. But it's a game where he's going to have to throw the ball a ton, and we'll see if he's going to be able to do that. But I think the Tampa Bay run starts here. So give me Tampa Bay minus 5.5.
Yeah, I think this, and again, with the public picking favorites, 90% are on Tampa Bay in this
Of
game.
course.
5.5 point spread seems a little close for this game. Buccaneers, this is a huge stretch. They get to start like against Tommy DeVito, like you said. Hopefully, they get Mike Evans back from injury. That would be huge
He's
for their
back.
offense.
He's
Yeah,
coming back.
he
100%.
better be. It's big for him. We saw Kate Otten be the big weapon for Baker Mayfield in Mike Evans' absence. So hopefully he can continue to be great. And he has two weapons to go to. Bucky Irving has also been great out of the backfield, and Rashad White. I expect a heavy dose of Mike Evans in this game. The Giants secondary has some pieces that are solid. The Bucks have lost four in a row against the spread, I think, and I can't pick against them because I think this is where their run starts. I just think Tommy DeVito first game, he could have a big game, and somehow in New York they're 0-5 at home so far this season. He could find a way to just steal a win and hurt the Giants draft pick, which is just a Giants thing to do. But I'm gonna go Buccaneers minus 5.5.
Do you think there's ever been a division in the history of the NFL that has had two teams that never won a home game?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
Because
I mean,
Dallas and the Giants, neither of them have won a home game yet.
yeah,
That would be crazy.
that would be crazy. But I as much as oh man, this is one of the toughest games for me to pick because I can just see the Giants just being the Giants and winning this.
So take the Giants on.
I'm not going to. 'Cause I think that I like this Bucks team a lot, and I think they make a
Yeah, me
run.
too. Yeah, I think they're the best team in the NFC South right now.
And they're coming off, yeah.
Because I mean, we looked. I mean, we'll get to Atlanta, or we already talked about Atlanta because they're on bot. But um, their secondary and their pass defense has been so bad. That's kind of what Tampa Bay's biggest weakness too is. And if they have the same biggest weakness, then I'd like Tampa Bay's strengths over Atlanta's strengths at
Yeah.
this point. But
And they're coming off four straight losses. They're
Bucks have
pissed.
really lost four straight now. That's
I
wild to
mean,
me.
their schedule's been brutal in those four
Yeah, they played.
games.
Yeah,
Ravens, Chiefs, Niners, Falcons.
yeah, it's tough, but and losing both those games to the Falcons is tough to say they're a better team than them. But right now, I
Yeah.
think I'd rather have the Bucks. But we can move on here to the AFC East with the Pats going into Miami to face the Dolphins. Dolphins open up as 7-point favorites in this game. Dolphins offense has really hit its stride and looked like the past few seasons of the Miami offense over the past few weeks. While I like how New England's been playing defensively over the past few weeks, Stafford and that passing offense absolutely ripped them apart last week. Cup was amazing, Nakua was amazing, and of course Stafford was perfect. Although I think the Dolphins have a much better defense than LA. I think the Dolphins are not going to be able to let excuse me, are not going to be able to do what the Pats did last week. I definitely think or excuse me, Jesus, the Rams did last week against the Pats. I think the Dolphins are going to be able to stop them. I think they're going to give Drake May some trouble, and I trust this defense. Miami's pass and run defense are both ranked top 10 right now. They're both 10th exactly. Maybe tough for a rookie quarterback, and Miami's a different animal at home. They get to go back to the good weather. New England's got to travel down. It's not the Belichick era anymore where you think they're just going to win in Miami every time. So I'm going to take the Dolphins -7 in this one.
Yeah, I've been riding the Dolphins a lot recently. I think they're going to continue to go on this little run. Tua at quarterback for this team completely changes them offensively. I've said it every game. I think that Tyreek Hill could have a big game in this one. Either him or maybe Waddle finally breaks out. Jonnu Smith's been a sneaky good target for him as well. The game is in Miami. I like the Dolphins in this one. Gerard Mayo's defense, like you said, wasn't great last week versus the Rams. This Dolphins defense has been pretty solid. We saw them look good against that Rams team just a couple of weeks ago. I like the Dolphins in this one, so I'm also going Dolphins -7.
Hey, moving on here to Vikings at Bears. Bears came to play for me last week, and they remain home dogs in a divisional game here. A little bit less than last week, but still dogs. Vikings are not playing their best ball offensively at all right now. They have to get better. Bears defense played well last week. I think they're a good unit, but they are a beat up unit right now. Brisker's on the IR. I do think that regardless of their injuries, though, I think they can force turnovers defensively. And when you're playing against Sam Darnold, you're absolutely going to have to do that. Vikings defensively are the best takeaway team in football. Bears could be in some serious trouble with Caleb Williams back there. The pass rush from the Vikings is very good. Their secondary and their linebackers are very good as well. So I could see Caleb having a tough day. I do think this is a bad matchup for the Bears, really, especially offensively. But the way the Vikings offense is playing right now, it's just not enough for me to take them as 3.5 point favorites on the road in a divisional game. So for the second week in a row, I'm going to take the Chicago Bears this time at plus 3.5.
Yeah, Vikings are coming off of a three-game winning streak. Granted, all three of those wins are against AFC South teams. We've seen Sam Darnold turnover issues, like you said, that could be big in this game. In that three-game winning stretch, their defense has been phenomenal. Last few weeks, it's been one of the best units in the NFL overall. If that continues, they should win this game. But I just like the Bears to keep it close, like you said. This Vikings offense is due a bad game. They haven't seen a defense as good as the Bears in a while. Bears are just better at home all season. They have lost four straight. They've scored fewer than 20 points in each of those games. But I can see them kind of getting out of the funk. Their offense looked a little bit better last week under Thomas Bryant as offensive coordinator. Caleb Williams had a better game. It was his third best game in terms of passing yards, a career high in completion percentage at 75%. He still hasn't ran or passed for a touchdown since the bye week. I think that changes. I don't. Eberflus is obviously a bad coach. Loss might be expected with him in there, but I think this Bears team kind of just finds a way to get it done and cover 3.5 points. So I also got Bears +3.5.
Okay, moving on here to Titans at Texans, and this week's schedule is nowhere near as entertaining as last week, to say the least.
No.
There's a lot of duds on the schedule, but Texans are on a short week to go face a team that is struggling. This Texans defense is quietly one of the best in football. I said I'd talk about them a bit here in the preview. They are sixth versus the pass in passing yards, ninth versus the rush in rushing yards. They're sixth in takeaways per game. They're fifth in sacks. This defense is just everywhere at all times and a scary unit if they can get this offense rolling. Titans are coming off of a bye, and they are good at times defensively, sometimes great defensively. They can give Stroud some troubles for sure. But this is a Titans team that continues week in and week out to, with bad coaching and bad quarterback play, to shoot themselves in the foot, whether it's a bad turnover, or a group of bad turnovers, or a bad penalty, or a group of bad penalties. They continue to shoot themselves in the foot. I think this offense gets better each week with Collins for the Texans. I think at some point here they're going to start playing to their full potential. I'm worried because of what we've seen from the offense, but I'm not worried at all about this defense. I look at the AFC, I see the Chiefs, I see the Bills, and I think the Texans are right there with them. I think that next tier after the Chiefs Bills is the Texans and the Chargers and those kind of teams. Oh, I mean, I'm completely forgetting about the AFC North. So
Yeah.
I would say the Steelers and the Ravens, Steelers, Ravens, Texans, Chiefs, Bills, Chargers. I mean, that's the group. Those are the teams to beat here in the AFC, and I believe there's one more spot outside of them. So yeah, one, two, three, four, five. Yeah, there's one more spot after those six. So that last spot is up for grabs, like you said. The Colts, the Broncos, those teams could be playing for that spot. But I think the Texans are in the upper echelon of the league right now. I'm gonna take them -7.5. I just love what their defense is doing.
Yeah, I love what their defense is doing. So I think the line moved to 8.5.
Really?
So yeah, 8.5. So a little bit
Give it to
bigger
me.
there. Um, Will Levis has been playing a little bit better recently. We saw last week he threw for a lot of yards, but a lot of that was inflated by a 98-yard touchdown pass. this Texans defense is very good. They've been great all season. The Titans' pass defense as well has been good all season. They've made a lot of plays. This Titans team is the worst team in the NFL against the spread. That makes me want to pick the Texans. They got Nico Collins back last week. We saw him make some big plays that were nullified. Joe Mixon's been good for them all season. I think CJ Stroud has a solid game. He should have time to throw. With the Titans pass rush isn't great. So I'll always usually pick the Texans over this Titans team. They seem to have their number, and I'm going Texans -8.5 as well.
Okay, moving on here to Cowboys at Commanders. If you saw this line preseason, you would be absolutely shocked as to what happened. Commanders get a mini bye here after a tough loss on Thursday Night Football. You have to imagine they're going to come to play in this game. I think a Dan Quinn team will come to play. Commanders right now are winning at an average of 14 points per game in their wins this year, which is super impressive. I know they've had a couple of massive blowouts in there and a couple of close games, so the numbers a little skewed to say the least, but still they are winning by an average of 2 touchdowns. Commanders' biggest issue versus that Eagles team was their running ability. The Eagles were just able to shut down that Commanders' run game. Now Brian Robinson gets another mini bye to get healthy, more healthy than he was going into that Eagles game, and they get to play against the second worst running defense in football. I think Brian Robinson is a phenomenal day. No matter who's at quarterback for the Cowboys, they struggle to move the ball because they can't run the ball. You can't sit there and drop back and pass it every single play, whether it's Dak Prescott or Cooper Rush or Trey Lance. They just can't. You can't win that way. The best way to beat this Commanders team, we saw from the Eagles last week, is to just run all over them and control time possession. Cowboys, to say the least, just do not have the facilities to do that. And I know this line looks kind of ridiculous, but I think the Commanders can win this game by 20 plus. So I have no problem taking them at 10.5 point favorites or whatever the hell it is now.
Yeah, I think it's 10.5. This Cowboys team, I mean, they can't run the football at all. I think I should just stop saying at this point because it's just not good. Cooper Rush will be at quarterback for him. It doesn't sound like they'll make a quarterback change. I don't expect them to win many games with him in there. No run game. Jake Ferguson, questionable, probably with a concussion. CeeDee Lamb's been okay, but really, he's the only threat this offense has. Defensively, maybe they can make some plays to keep him in this game. Maybe a strip sack. Micah Parsons, Jaden Daniels struggled last week under pressure. Cliff Kingsbury offenses tend to kind of fall apart around this time of the season and get worse and worse. So that does worry me. But I like this Commanders defense to really just shut down anything the Cowboys have going. They've been getting better and better. Dan Quinn's done a great job with them. They're coming off of a disappointing loss, and I think that they're going to be a little pissed off and win this game. So I don't trust the Cowboys to score more than 10 points, and I think this Commanders team could still, even with Cliff Kingsbury falling off a cliff, still score 24 points. They do struggle in the red zone, so that's a little concerning for with that big of a spread, but I'm going to go with Commanders -10.5.
Okay, moving on here to Broncos at Raiders. Very interesting game here as the Broncos look to continue their defensive dominance. We know the Broncos' pass defense, which is ranked seventh, and their pass rush, which is ranked first, has been phenomenal. But last week against Atlanta, they did a great job stopping the run too. And if you could do all those three teams, doesn't matter what your offense is, you're going to be able to compete in every game. Raiders are a team that can't run versus anybody, very similar to the Cowboys. So the pass defense will be in full effect for the Broncos as Gardner Minshew's going to have to drop back. He hasn't been horrible this year, but he's not going to be good enough to torch this Broncos team. This is a game that I could see the Raiders not touching the end zone in. I could see this being a 9 point game for the Raiders here. Offensively, Bo Nix gets better every single week. He plays a decent secondary in this week in the Raiders, but he looked great last week versus Atlanta. The Raiders are going to have to get to him. If they play like Atlanta did and they can't get a pass rush going, we're going to see another great Bo Nix game. Raiders do not do a great job of stopping the run. If the Broncos can run the ball well, I think this is going to be a very long game for the Raiders. I'm loving this Broncos team right now. They're one of my favorite teams to watch in the league. Them and the Chargers out of that division. They'll be a team very similar to the Chargers that you just do not want to play going down the stretch and early on in the playoffs. I love them here. I hate the Raiders, so give me Broncos -5.5.
Yeah, this game I view almost identically kind of to that Steelers game. This Broncos team has been very good. They were great last week. Them only being 5.5 point favorites here is kind of wild. Their defense has been great. The Raiders offense has not been good. Offensively for the Broncos, when they can run the ball, their offense has been good, and this is a team that they should be able to run against. The Raiders' run defense is towards the middle of the pack. I think we could have another Bo Nix game, help improve his Rookie of the Year status, get closer and closer to Jaden Daniels. The issue for the Broncos in this game is the fact that it's in Vegas. The Raiders have beaten the Broncos in 8 straight games dating back to 2020. The Denver Broncos have never beaten the Las Vegas Raiders, actually. So I think it's time that they finally change that. The Raiders just don't have the firepower to keep up with this Broncos defense. Brock Bowers has been a stud. We saw him have 13 catches last week, but outside of that, you have Meyer and Myers who are solid, but I don't think they really can stand out too much against this team, especially with no run game. I don't expect much from the Raiders offensively in this game, so I love Broncos 5.5. It feels like the exact same way with the Steelers. It just feels like a trap.
Okay, moving on here to 49ers at Packers. This is a matchup that the 49ers have owned as of recently, but the Packers did give them some trouble with Jordan Love in the playoffs last year, so that could have just been a Rodgers thing. Packers are coming off of a game that they should have lost but won, and the 49ers are coming off of a game that they should have won but lost. So, a couple different things at play going on in this game. Green Bay has had a turnover problem this year, especially with Jordan Love throwing picks. 49ers are eighth in takeaways per game so far this year, so they've been able to get those takeaways. This is a game where they're gonna have at least one, probably a couple. San Francisco defense has been pretty quietly good all year, despite them being just 500. They've been great against the run. They're improving against the pass every week. Nick Bosa is TBD in this game. He may not play after getting hurt at the end of that Seahawks game. If he's not there, that's a complete difference maker in this team. Green Bay has been hot and cold on defense, but I think this is a pretty solid matchup for them. I think if it comes down to, I think it just comes down to San Francisco's ability to run the ball. They're gonna have to run the ball to beat Green Bay. They've been great, obviously historically, at running the football, but in a Lambeau game in cold weather, I'm gonna rock with the Packers minus 2.5.
Yeah, getting the 49ers as underdogs is very interesting. I wouldn't have expected that going into this season.
I mean, they are 500.
I know. That's what I mean. They've
Yeah,
just been one of my, in my opinion, the most disappointing teams this season. I'd put
yeah.
them almost above the Cowboys because the Cowboys, as shocking as it is, if you would have told me they have no run game and suck, I wouldn't be as shocked as I am with this 49ers team. They just haven't been good all around. It does seem like they have that Super Bowl runner-up hangover that we've seen from a couple teams. It's been rough for them all season. Losing Kittle really hurts this offense. It seems like losing Kittle or losing McCaffrey does hurt this offense a lot. They really need CMC to get his feet under him and have a big game. And getting Kittle back could be huge to help boost the run game and this offense. So it'll be interesting to see if he's good to go. Defensively, they haven't been as tough as they were last year. They haven't been a unit that you're scared of, really. And that's kind of been the 49ers team as a whole. I hate to bring it up, but it seems like they've lost a little bit of their aura. They used to always come out with the beatbox and uh, they fight you.
Now they fight each other.
Yeah, now they fight each other. They haven't been great. The Packers defense has been slightly above average in the run and the pass game. I think the Packers need to come out of this game fast and kind of get ahead of this 49ers team. We know the 49ers team blows leads late, but I think it's big for the Packers to get ahead early. Chance for a revenge game. I still don't know when Toyotathon is, and I'm waiting for confirmation on when it starts, but I am also going to go with Packers minus 2.5.
Okay, moving on here to Cardinals at Seahawks. One of the best games of the week here, in my opinion. It's a highlight for sure. All these three down the stretch are highlights. Cardinals are coming off of a bye that they were very hot going into. Seahawks are coming off of a game where they upset San Francisco late on the road. While Seattle's defense is very underrated, in my opinion, the pass rush has fallen off a bit recently. They've fallen down from like second in sacks to bottom of the league. And Arizona allows the fourth least sacks per game on their quarterback, so they've been really, really good at protecting Kyler Murray all year. Cardinals pass rush has been a weakness for them, but Seattle does give up the sixth most sacks per game, so maybe we see this Cardinals pass rush finally getting a rhythm coming off the bye here. Cardinals offense runs through their run game. We've said it all year. Seattle's strength defensively is more in the pass game, so Arizona can run their offense how they want if they're able to run the ball. I don't put it past Seattle to stop the run here and make it tough on this Cardinals defense or on Cardinals offense, I should say, but I trust that the Cardinals are going to be able to run the ball. Cardinals are red hot. They're coming off a bye. Seattle's 2-4 at home this season. I know there's going to be a lot of people that pick Seattle because they just beat San Francisco. I think that's probably why they're favored in this game, or maybe they aren't anymore. I don't know, but I'm going to take the Cardinals plus whatever it is, +1 or -1. It's damn near pick 'em last
It's
time I
it's
checked.
one.
So
It's still one.
we might not
Cardinals.
even take this as a 1 point. Maybe we just take this as a pick. Look at it was 112, 108 for the money lines last time I checked.
That's still that. Yeah.
Really? Okay, yeah. So it's damn near pick 'em.
Yeah. Cardinals get a huge game coming off of a bye. They're currently sit atop the NFC West standings. They have a chance to take a lead here. James Conner needs to continue to have his great season. This Arizona defense has been making strides and getting better. They've won and covered in 4 straight games, so maybe they're due for a loss. Another one where Seattle has beat the Cardinals 5 straight times. It seems like it's a trend. The Seahawks have the second best pass offense in the NFL. Geno Smith's had his ups and downs, but this offense loves to pass the football. And right now, last time I checked, the Seattle weather showed rain and pretty cold weather. I feel like I know the Cardinals are from Arizona and cold wet. They're going up to an outdoor stadium. I feel like schematically, some rain would probably help the Cardinals in this game. They are a way better run team than the Seahawks right now. The Seahawks have been struggling to run the ball. I'm gonna also take Cardinals +1.
Okay, moving on here to Eagles at Rams on Sunday Night Football. Eagles get a mini bye here after playing on Sunday Night Football, or sorry, after playing uh, Thursday Night Football and then going to play Sunday Night Football, but they do have a trip out west. Rams did not look phenomenal versus the Pats last week, but you were seeing shades of this offense getting back to normal, especially in the pass game. They're phenomenal in that game. Eagles defense has had a streak of good weeks here, but they're due to have a stinker, and this offense can definitely induce that. We know the Eagles secondary is playing a lot better over the past few weeks, but I still see flashes of that old Eagles secondary, and you're playing against a team that's really tough to stop in the pass game. Rams defense has not had a great year though. Eagles should be able to do what they want with them offensively. I hate primetime overs, but this is one that I feel like is poised to happen. I don't know if either team will be able to stop each other. Eagles' recipe for success here is to just run the hell out of the ball and control the time of possession throughout. I think they can do that. If the Eagles can stop the Rams in the red zone, I think they'll be in a great spot. But with that being said, I think the Rams got their backs against the wall. I think the secondary is being overvalued a little bit. I'm going to take the Rams +2.5.
Yeah, I feel very similar about this game as well, but this is one of the tougher ones for me to pick of all of the games all week. Eagles have been one of the better teams in recent weeks defensively. They have the number 2 passing defense in the NFL. You said it though, they haven't really had competition. This is by far probably the best pass offense that they've went against. Um, I go back and forth on this one. They're great rushing the football. The Eagles, they're better running team. Ever since Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua have come back for the Rams, Kyron Williams' production has went down significantly. I can see that continuing. They're gonna have to be able to pass against this Eagles team, and we haven't seen it happen yet. So I'm gonna lean towards the Eagles in this one. Rams defense is 22nd in scoring in the NFL. I can see Saquon having a big game, and Jalen Hurts, while he hasn't been great, he's been solid getting the ball. They have so many weapons on offense. I can see them being able to put up a big points, a lot of points. Philly has won 6 straight overall and 5 straight times on the road against the Rams. I'm gonna pick that to continue. There's gonna be a lot of Philadelphia fans in LA, so I'll go with the Eagles -2.5.
Okay, we'll move on to Monday Night Football here. Ravens at Chargers, the Harbaugh Bowl. Another primetime game here for the Chargers coming off of Sunday Night Football. They could play Monday night. Chargers offense is just a rushing offense at heart. And outside of Pittsburgh last week, the Ravens have been great at stopping the run. Chargers defense is very similar to that Steelers defense, though, that dominated the Ravens last week. So maybe they could produce similar results that the Steelers were able to. I think this turns into a very defensive matchup. Both defenses force turnovers, and neither team gives the ball away much. Whoever wins the turnover battle is most likely to win this game. I really like the Ravens to bounce back after a tough game in Pittsburgh. John won the Super Bowl matchup with these coaches, so I'm going to continue to take him here. I love the Ravens here. As much as I love watching this Chargers team, I think this is a good matchup for the Ravens. I think they're going to come out hot after last week. So give me Baltimore -3.
Yeah, Harbaugh Bowl here on Monday night. Ravens are coming off of a loss. Like you said, they only scored 16 points in that game. I think Lamar's due for a big game here, coming off of that really disappointing game. It's in prime time. I think he'll be ready to go. The Chargers defense has been one of the best all season. The Bengals game was probably their worst game all season. I think that was probably their season high in points given up. So it will be a tough task for Lamar, but this Ravens offense, I guess if anyone were to know a lot about this Ravens offense, I guess maybe it's his brother, but I just trust this Ravens team to get it done. Chargers have been top 10 against the run defensively. I just think they have so many different weapons. I think maybe we can finally see some Keaton Mitchell. We haven't seen him at all this season, but regardless, if it's just Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson, I trust this Ravens offense to move the ball well and win by more than three. So I'll go Ravens -3.
Okay, we'll move on to our best bets now, and it is an even number week, so you are starting us off.
Yeah, I'm starting us off, and you know what? I'm gonna set the tone here. Give me Colts +7.5 as the best bet of the week. Maybe. We know the Lions are one of the best teams against the spread. It's the Lions. I think what are they?
I think it's a good line
Yeah,
for the
they're
Colts.
they're eight
That's a
and
good
two
line
against
for
the
him.
spread, but the Colts are right there with them. The Colts are 8-3 versus the spread. I just trust this Colts team to break out. Indiana Knights are wearing their alternate uniforms. They had a great game in them last year where they looked very good. The refs stole it from them. If the refs steal it from them in this game, most likely they still cover 7.5 points. Um, I think they're going to have a big game. I think Anthony Richardson's going to show some people that he's not he's an accurate quarterback. Maybe just unlucky. I'm going Colts -7 or +7.5.
You don't gotta you don't gotta worry about the Lions or the refs rigging it for the Lions ever. It's never been a thing.
I don't know. That usually happens when your team actually becomes good, and
They were
the
great
Lions
last
have
year and
become
they
good.
got fucked in the Cowboys game.
That's their first year being good, though. Doesn't happen your first year.
Yeah, I guess. But I'm not gonna take the Lions -7.5.
Boo, not standing on
Um
business.
I took it as my actual pick, but if I'm
Boo.
giving my best bets, I think that's a great line for the Colts. I think the Lions definitely could win that game by double digits, but also the Colts are
I
scrappy.
thought I
Like
thought you were gonna stand on business. It's okay.
7.5 points on the road. That's a lot of points.
I
It's not
mean,
the
how many
we're not playing the
times? How many
Jaguars
how many big spreads have the Lions had this year, and they've covered all of them?
on the road.
I mean, they were on the road what 2 weeks ago when they had a big spread?
They were on the road. Cowboys was 3.5. Houston was 3.5. The Cardinals was 3.5.
You were home against Tennessee. I thought you were on the road for that
Yeah,
one.
the two biggest spreads were. This is
But
the biggest road.
Dallas,
Yeah, 3.5. This is the uh biggest road spread for the Lions by double. So I don't love it. Give me the Ravens -3. It's my first
oh
best bet.
um, for my best bet, then next one I'll go Broncos -5.5. It feels like a trap, but I'm taking it anyways. I think this Broncos team is miles better than the Raiders, and I don't see the Raiders being able to score really at all. So I like the Broncos to cover again.
My next one here, I'm gonna rock with the Commies -10.5. I think they beat the brakes off this Cowboys team. They're coming off of a game they should have won. They get a mini bye. Cowboys are on a short week in Washington. This is just a recipe for success for the Commanders. I think they dominate -10.5.
Yeah, I'm deciding now.
I'm between two, so I hope you pick one of them.
I'm between two as well. Obviously, the Steelers game, it just seems so juicy. It almost feels like a trap. It's almost too juicy. I'm gonna go, I think, with the team that I've been riding with recently, and that's been the Dolphins. I think I'm gonna go Dolphins -7. I trust this team to be able to put up points against the Patriots. They've been able to beat the bad teams pretty easily, and I expect them to do that again. So I got Dolphins -7.
Well, that makes it tough for me because I'm between the Panthers and the Cardinals, but I'll go with the Cardinals +1. Both teams coming off a bye, between the Cardinals and the Panthers. But Cardinals are coming off a bye. They're playing a Seahawks team that gave it all they could to get that win in San Francisco, and they're due for a letdown. They've been really bad at home this year. The Cardinals are a great team. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals as my final best bet. And that will about do it for this episode of the Engage 8 podcast. We will be back next week on Monday, I believe, to recap all of these games from the past week, as well as giving our studs and duds for week 12. And then we will be back a week from today to talk about week 13 of the NFL season, the past couple weeks here in college basketball as we get ready for the playoff coming up here soon. And we'll also talk about the games we didn't talk about on Sunday night and Monday Night Football. But Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. All those links in our description are there for Spotify, TikTok, social media, and all that good stuff. And we'll see everybody in the next one.